Ianis Hagi should definitely, he feels that he's got a part to play in the Rangers team, certainly in the way they are just now. Of course, he's been playing for the B team, scored a hat-trick against Derby County on Saturday, and even at that point on Saturday, I was working on Saturday morning, and fans were saying send a taxi up to Auchenhowie and get a taxi from there to
Hampden.
Taxi to Hampden. So obviously some Rangers fans keen for him to play. It came out last night that he's actually got a clause in his contract, which when he plays a certain amount of games will be triggered. He's currently on 99 games. So if he plays a certain amount of games,
100.
which you would assume would be 100, triggers a wage rise. This seems to be the reluctance for Rangers to play him. Whether it's
Do you know what the figure is?
It's a club. Well, I spoke after reading that story last night. I thought, well, that's interesting. Everything starts to add up now. So spoke to someone who should know, and they told me it's in the region of £6,000 a week. Now he's got 2 years left to run in his contract, but around about £6,000 a week if he triggers that clause. So it seems to be that's the reason he's not playing.
Again, can somebody make sense of this for me? For £6,000 a week, right? So you've decided, and even if you've had the conversation, Ianis, thanks very much. You're not going to fit into my team here, right? Okay. Well, if I paid, let me think, £6,000 a week, you might be here at the end of August. Well, that's a few weeks. Rangers right now are trying to get into a competition that will earn them in excess of £40 million to qualify. Why are they balking about paying a guy an extra £6,000 a week?
Yeah. I totally get your point. I suppose what you would maybe counter that with is to say
you might end up stuck with him for 2 years and he's on an increased wage.
You then get another. You're trying to.
It doesn't matter.
You're trying to bring the wage bill down. It's a gamble. Okay, it's not a huge gamble, but it's still a gamble at a time when Rangers are trying to get their finances sorted and wages get all the wages sorted.
But they're trying to qualify for the Champions League, and the squad isn't equipped for it. And Tom Lawrence is starting. Yeah. And you've got a guy in Hagi who was playing at the Euros a couple of weeks ago, should be one of the biggest assets of their football club because of that.
Yeah.
And other clubs, if they are interested, are now looking, saying, I'm looking at your starting 11, this guy can't get in there, and you're trying to ask me for £3 million.
Yeah.
No chance.
I suppose there's different strands to it. What you need to know, first of all, is how much the manager wants him. See, if the manager thinks he is a guy that he can hang his hat on and he thinks, right, Hagi is going to be a real part of my team, then I'm sure he would be going to the board and saying, well, let's just pay the extra £6,000 a week. But if he doesn't,
he can sell him before the window. He just needs manpower and he's talented options, and he's only got one number 10 right now, and it's Tom Lawrence. And I think we're agreed Tom Lawrence is some way short of the required standard.
But it's funny, it definitely is. To look back, sorry, I'd been speaking to Scott earlier, just before we come on here, and I was talking to him about that clause. He said, it's funny, his last appearance was in a League Cup game against Morton at the start of last season. He played 2 games. I think he featured against Servette in the Champions League qualifier last season, and then he played against Morton. Now, he didn't even start that game. Michael Beale made about 8 changes, and yet Hagi didn't start. He was on the bench, and then he came on. He came on for I think half an hour or something like that. And then after the game, Scott was saying he remembered them doing something in that game which was quite bizarre. And I look back, he took his shirt off at the end and gave it over to one of the ball boys. So they obviously knew then. He obviously knew that was it all coming to an end. Mm-hmm. It was this clause that he'd been told about that the club weren't willing to pay that extra wage and he was going to have to go. So he then went to Alaves. But the bit that I can't quite understand either is that Michael Beale came in December 2022, and it was only weeks later that they handed him the contract extension. So, what were they thinking?
What were they thinking? What were they thinking?
And then saying, "Oh, we'll put this clause in. If he wasn't going to be part of